I think it's 11:01 on my end, so I think that we should go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for being on today. My name is Emily Rush, and I'm the Executive Director of CalPIRG, the California Public Interest Research Group. And so I will kick off the call with some brief remarks before handing it off to the other folks joining our panel. But the reason that we've convened this call today is because today CalPIRG, in our national network known as US PIRG, is delivering a letter to legislators and the governor here in California, as well as elected officials around the country, signed by 326 hospital repair experts, calling for manufacturers to stop withholding what technicians need to fix medical equipment like ventilators. It's part of our larger Right to Repair campaign, which aims to remove unnecessary barriers to repair, which drive up costs for product owners and increase electronic waste. COVID-19 is putting incredible stress on our medical system, including the work of hospital biomedical repair technicians, known as biomeds, or BMETs. These technicians here are essential. Without them, you wouldn't have working equipment. But in some cases, manufacturers restrict access to what biomeds need. For example, as ventilators are pressed into around-the-clock use, repair and maintenance issues increase. While some ventilator manufacturers provide service information, other manufacturers make it hard to access manuals, read error logs, or run diagnostic tests. So our message today is clear. Keeping equipment working under the stress of the COVID-19 pandemic is a matter of life and death. This is no time to try and squeeze hospitals into paying extra for proprietary repairs. Manufacturers claim that these restrictions are in place to ensure safety, but in 2018, the FDA found third-party repair carries no additional risk, and that both they and manufacturers provide high-quality, safe, and effective servicing of medical devices. Instead of restricting third-party repair, the FDA says that the continued availability of third-party entities to service and repair medical devices is critical to the functioning of the US healthcare system. Yet despite this, manufacturers keep restricting repair. Manufacturers also benefit financially by limiting repair to push hospitals to hire their technicians, which can cost far more. In addition to higher costs, fewer options can lead to bottlenecks and delays, especially in a time of crisis. We should remove each and every unnecessary barrier to repairing these essential medical equipment like ventilators. And if manufacturers won't remove these restrictions, public officials should require them to do so. Joining me today to illustrate the problem in more detail are Ilir Kuoli, the president of the American College of Clinical Engineering, Nader Hammond from the California Medical Instrument Association, Kyle Wiens, the CEO of iFixit.com, based in San Luis Obispo, Paul Kelly, Director of Biomedical Engineering at the Washington Hospital in Fremont, and Bhaskar Iduri, the VP of Healthcare Technology Management and QA at Renovo Solutions. Ilir, I'd like to turn it over to you first to talk about how this issue has affected your work.
Sure. Thank you for introducing us. I'm happy to be here. I wish we wouldn't have to be here because this is such, it sounds so easy. Why shouldn't we have these rights to repair our equipment? Why shouldn't we as biomeds be able to service our equipment, to make it available to our users and to our patients as soon as possible? However, it's still impossible right now to get access to a lot of manuals, a lot of training for these devices because of certain restrictions by manufacturers. So, this thing has affected a lot of us in biomedical engineering, pretty much all of us. And again, I'm here to represent the American College of Clinical Engineers because the ACCE was established 30 years ago, actually. We celebrate our 30-year birthday this year, in order to, among many things, to represent the professional interest of clinical engineers and to promote the safe and effective application of science and technology in patient care. So, the right to repair, it's one of these things, one of the professional interests of clinical engineers. We need to be able to repair our equipment. during the time of COVID-19, we have seen a lot of manufacturers that haven't been able to send their technicians to our hospitals, and for good reasons, because in some cases the hospitals weren't allowing outsiders to come in the hospital in order to prevent infections. In other cases, their technicians couldn't travel around the country because of the limited availabilities of flight, and they did, a lot of people are not willing to travel these days. And so in turn, we were having a lot of issues with getting equipment fixed in time, and also getting equipment to get their preventive maintenance done in time, which is a requirement by Joint Commission, it's a requirement by CMS, it's a requirement by a lot of state regulatory agencies. So a lot of these equipment started to miss their deadlines because manufacturers couldn't send their people to service our equipment. And this could have easily been fixed by having our technicians fix the equipment or PM the equipment or get the training that our technicians need in order to get the equipment fixed. And if certain manufacturers would allow us to do that, we would make these devices, these life-saving devices in many cases, available to our customers, to our physicians, and in turn to our patients. So yes, COVID, I think, has brought a spotlight on the issue of the right to repair for medical equipment.
Great. Thank you, Ilir, for your comments. Next, I want to turn it over to you, Paul, to talk about, and if you could give specific examples where the right to repair has actually hampered your work, that would be really helpful. And also remind attendees that you can ask questions in the Q&A box on the Zoom.
So a couple of issues we've had where training is restricted. Companies will charge an exorbitant price to get training, and then if you agree, they keep throwing in more hoops because they really want to sell you a contract. One particular example was a company that we bought some devices from, agreed to half price for their training class. Then when we got ready to, and it was $18,000 for training. When we agreed to it, they gave us a huge legal document that the individual technicians had to sign, and our lawyers balked at that. Then we found out we would have to repeat that training every 2 years. Then we found out it was $35,000 worth of test equipment. And of course, their service contract looked like a bargain at the end of that. And this was a device that previous models we had been able to service, and the company got sold multiple times, and the current one, that's their attitude. Another one recently was a ventilator issue where we called in the manufacturer to do the routine maintenance on it. And because they're so busy elsewhere, they can't do that for us. And that one we have planned to get my staff trained in the near future, but not currently.
Wow. Okay. Great. Thank you. So what would it mean for you if you had the increased rights to information like service manuals, et cetera?
Well, I think the main thing is that we are here on site and we are available to repair things quickly. So when we know what we're doing, when we have the information to do the repairs, then we'll crawl in the middle of surgery while it's going on and fix something if we have to. I've done that before, where some manufacturers would require us to pull the equipment out, ship it back to them to be repaired or exchanged, and then come back. And in the meantime, the surgeon has closed the patient, sent him out to return to surgery once that device comes back. And that's totally unacceptable. I think all of us in this field are here for safety first. And when we're able to do things like that and look like the quote hero, we not only make us look good and it looks good and it treats the patient better, but we also make the manufacturer look better because the users know what happened. They know that it was brand X device that failed, and they knew that we could come in and take care of it. And it looks like their device is more reliable, perhaps, than it actually is.
Right.
And Emily, if I may add, sorry to jump in.
Yeah, it's a little hard to hear your audio, Ilir, so the better you can.
Let me get a little bit closer.
Oh, that's much better.
Oh. So I just wanted to add on top of that, in many cases, I've hired 2 technicians from the manufacturer itself, and the technicians were able to service those devices when they worked for the manufacturer, but they were no longer able or allowed to service these devices when working for us. So it's, it's, again, it's about the money at the end of the day. I don't think there's a need to hide that. And our technicians in general are, and Paul can speak to this, everybody can speak to this, are people who are trained not only on one device, they're trained on hundreds of devices we have here. They are, experts in electronics, in electrical engineering. So these guys, they'll fix pretty much anything. And again, if you make the manuals available to them, they will be able to, to fix these devices in no time. Again, we'll make the manufacturer look good, we'll make all of us look good, we'll make patient care much safer, and we'll be able to deliver solutions a lot faster than, than having to wait for a manufacturer technician.
Great, thanks. Nader Hammond, how about you? How has this issue affected your work?
Hi. So it's kind of completing what Blair and Paul has mentioned. It's a challenge. Our goal is not at all different from what the manufacturer are claiming to be, which is patient safety. Under no circumstances we are willing or we will touch any device if we don't think we are qualified or if we don't have the proper qualification to touch the device. So in a sense, we are not disagreeing with the manufacturers. Our goal is never to steal their business away from them. This is not why we are here. We have one goal in mind: patient safety. Patient safety, as Paul mentioned, response time is essential. Being able to fix those equipment on site and get that device back and running to support the patients is essential. We cannot wait a day or 2 days or someone to call us back and come in. We cannot wait to have restrictions on getting parts. I have a situation that a medical device needed a part that cost $80, literally $80. The manufacturer is the only source for that part. They wouldn't sell it to us because we do not have a trained engineer. It's just kind of like the connector on your door. It's just that. They wouldn't sell us that $80 part. The only option for us is to get them to come in and do it themselves. How much is that going to cost? $4,000. So that's delaying the repair, delaying the service, affecting the patient safety, and it's costing us lots of money. And then we wonder why the healthcare is expensive. So our goal is not to fight those manufacturers, is not against them. We believe in patient safety, but they have to let us do what we can do. We are here helping them. The reason why they cannot get to Paul's site to fix the ventilators because they're overly stretched thin. They cannot get to their equipment. And if we help them actually fill those gaps, we still need them. We still need their support. We still need their help. We still need their expertise. But they should let us do what we are capable of. They will look good. We will look good. And the patient safety will super high rocket safety for the patients. So this is how we see it. This is how we would like to have it. Again, I don't see us being on a different boat than the manufacturers. Some manufacturers, they stepped to the front. They came to my office multiple times, and they're just here to support. They want to help. They want to engage. They want to get to the right place. They understood the challenge. Most of the others, even like Paul is saying, he wants to send his engineers to be trained on vents. We have sent engineers for different manufacture different equipments, and even after we send the engineers to be trained, even if we buy all the tools, they still want us to sign a contract to get the service keys, because now it's protected software wise, and if you don't have a service contract, we will not give you the service keys. In other ways, all the investment we did in training is useless. So this is not acceptable. This is why we see it.
Yeah, great. And Bhaskar Aduri, what do you have to add?
So I think, the biggest takeaway is, based on what I'm hearing from everybody on the group, I agree with all the things that are mentioned. Patient safety is the key. And again, as we are on site, servicing the equipment, we are right there, readily available to provide all the support needed. The challenge is that we are getting into nowadays with the COVID thing is we have this emergency equipment that are coming and sitting at the docking station and ready to be, patient use. And they need someone to take the first look and put it back into service. And we have some equipment that are, we need some special training. So the challenges that we are facing is, the manufacturer saying, hey, all the essential travel has been, delayed until further notice. So they cannot send anyone on site. And we are trying to work with them to get all the things needed so that we can perform the necessary inspections and put it into patient use. And to add on to the Paul piece, we had the similar situation at a couple of sites where we sent out people for training and they came back and they started working on the equipment. And down the road, what we realized is you need a special access to get into the second level of service functionality on the equipment. So which is not included in the original delivery plan. So which is something that we found out, hey, this is something we only have to give it back to the manufacturer. So especially with the software access, so they are saying at the front line, yes, we are going to train you, we are going to provide you with all the tools. But the things that we are getting into is once we need to get into the further diagnostic errors, we need some kind of a special access, which we are not getting from the manufacturer. So the piece is, we would like to get access to those areas. We would like to buy parts. And with this COVID situation, we are actually at the site, ready to provide all the services we can. And the patient safety is key for everyone. And we want to make sure the equipment that we are putting into the patient care room is, serving its purpose. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Kyle, you're from iFixit.com, and I know you best for working on the right to repair other electronics. Tell us more about what you're doing on the medical equipment side of things.
Well, it's interesting seeing the issues that you guys are all raising, because these are the exact same issues that farmers are having with their tractors. They don't have access to the diagnostic codes. They don't have access to the more advanced software. It is really amazing how this issue parallels in all kinds of different industries. We see this with iPhones. Apple has diagnostic software. The home button on the iPhone is something that you cannot repair unless you have Apple software, and they don't make it available to the independent shop. So you can I can physically fix the button, but I can't make it work. Take it into an Apple store, they plug it into their computer, they hit the button, it works. So this is a new reality where software has moved into all of our products. It gives manufacturers new sets of tools, and the default, of course, is they develop the tools internally and then they use it to get whatever business advantage they can over the competition, whether the competition is their users or third-party maintenance companies. It's the same playbook we see over and over again. And so I think from a public policy perspective, we should step back and say, hey, this medical situation that we're seeing is the exact same thing that we're seeing repeated in industry after industry. And patient care is foremost. So how do we get the people who are on the front lines, who are maintaining the equipment themselves, the tooling and the information that they need? On the iFixit side, we're the free repair manual for everything, and we certainly think that medical equipment should be included in that. So we're going to have an announcement that we'll be making tomorrow in that regard, where we're working on building a resource for biomeds on iFixit. But across the board, this is really essential. We have seen what availability of access to information has done. Frank's Hospital Workshop has been a central, very useful resource for a long time. Frank has sort of single-handedly, out of a children's hospital in Tanzania, built the world's most useful information resource for biomeds. And I think that clearly that has been a net good for the world, what Frank has done, and it's helped every biomed that I know in their work. And so we need to continue on that trend and realize that open access to information, it's a rising tide that lifts all boats. It doesn't compromise patient safety. If you know the correct way to fix something, it improves patient safety.
Great. And again, for those who are listening in, you can ask questions of our panelists right now in the Q&A function. Again, just to acknowledge the panelists that we have here today, it's Ilir Kuloli, the president of the American College of Clinical Engineering, Nader Hammond from the California Medical Instrumentation Association, Kyle Wiens from iFixit, Paul Kelly, the Director of Biomedical Engineering at the Washington Hospital in Fremont, and Bhaskar Iduri, the VP of Healthcare Technology Management and QA at Renovo Solutions. So we have a esteemed group of panelists, all here in California, although there are 326 biomeds who have signed an open letter today that we're delivering today to California lawmakers, calling on manufacturers to open up more opportunities for on-site, more affordable and faster repair of their medical devices. And so at this time, if there are any questions for this panel, please put them into the Q&A function so that we can ask them right now. And while we're waiting for questions, I don't know if there's any other from the panelists here. I think it'd be most helpful probably for media to hear any other examples, specific examples that you have or examples that you can think of during this pandemic where timely repair, could mean life or death in this moment.
Hi, I'll comment on that in a general way. So it's not that it could mean life or death. It's definitely life or death, especially during the pandemic. And it's not just for the COVID-19 patients, it's for all the patients. Being able to respond in a timely manner. I had situations in the past, before the COVID pandemic, that we had to come into the hospital, and I'm sure that my colleagues, Alaire and Paul, they have experienced that. You had to come in to the hospital in the middle of the night and try to pull parts from different devices, from different sources, to get the device up and running, because that patient is waiting on that device. If you don't get it up and running within an hour or 2 hours, that patient will die. We had to do this multiple times throughout my career. It's not an option. It's not that, well, maybe let's wait until to see the manufacturer. Are they gonna respond to us? When are they gonna respond to us? Oh, you need a contract. No, you don't need a contract. Or you can't buy this part, or you can't do this. It is always life or death in our domain in this case. Like Kyle was indicating, he's trying to fix a button on the iPhone. If it's not fixed, I mean, you're not gonna have a phone. In our case, if you don't fix a vent, the patient is dead. And do you want to get your hands dirty with that situation for the rest of your life? I don't see how a manufacturer can come and say, no, I'm not gonna let you do this. It's just mind-blowing to think that they have the right to do this for us. Again, I want to reinforce that we are not fighting them to take their business away from them. Actually, I don't see us fighting them. We're asking for cooperation. We need to work together for the sake of the patient.
Emily, I can add some specific examples. I may not call the manufacturer out by name, but especially during COVID, I think the heart-lung machines, ECMO machines have become very important, to sustain life.
You're pretty good, but just move a little closer and say that again. Which kind of machines?
Okay, the ECMO and heart-lung machines, they've become quite important to sustain life during COVID. I mean, we've heard a lot of stories of people who are on these devices in order to, to help them stay alive, really, to help the blood circulate because their lungs were not working anymore. So a few months ago, this was before COVID, we needed some help with some heater-cooler devices, which are devices that are used before you use a heart-lung machine. They heat or cool the blood before it enters the patient. So apparently the company that we had the heater coolers from had been purchased by another company without our knowledge. And this other new company wouldn't allow our technicians to buy any parts or do any service on site, because all they did was they needed to have a service contract with them, period. They wouldn't provide training. It was just like, without anybody knowing this. And the fights that I had, with that company, and I'm glad we're actually having this call right now, because I did involve our legal team, in order to be able to get some parts, because those are life-saving devices. Those are life-sustaining devices. Without them, patients will die. And in a hospital like I am, which is very, we see the most critical patients probably in the Bay Area, and some in the country. So those devices are extremely important for for saving lives. For a manufacturer to do that without any warning, without any previous, nobody knew that this company had been purchased, nobody knew the new rules, and then to implement them without anybody knowing that, I mean, that's very reckless. I would say it's not it's not just unfair, it's reckless. People can die because of that.
Yeah. I was going to say, ask, Nadir gave an example, Nadir gave an example earlier about how there's an $80 part and it ends up costing $4,000, instead, when you could have just bought the $80 part and replaced it yourself on site. Are there any other good examples of how this practice is driving up costs in the industry?
I can add more to it, not in terms of the parts. The things that we are seeing mainly is, in addition to the parts availability, one thing that is really struggling us as equipment maintainers and also our customers, the continuous support for the earlier version of equipment. So let's say there's a piece of equipment that was declared as obsolete, and during this pandemic, at least we should be able to do something to keep it back up and running, some kind of parts availability, this documentation. So this is something that we are seeing more happening whenever there is a new product in the market. uh, Immediately the earlier version will be called it as it's obsolete, and all the training that we put into the test equipment, the tools that we purchased. So basically now we have to reinvent and find a new vendor or a new manufacturer or some kind of a new school, where we can buy additional equipment. So this is something, again, costing us as a service provider and also to the equipment owner to purchase new equipment. So there has to be some kind of like a streamline where there has to be some kind of support for the equipment that are end of life or obsolete for at least some extent of time. Not all of a sudden that they are going to say we're going to seize all kind of service support from XYZ day.
Right.
So.
I'm curious if you've seen any changes from the industry since COVID-19. I know our organization delivered 43,000 petition signatures to manufacturers, calling on them to be more responsive on this issue. And I believe some of them have made some changes. Do you see any sort of at least recognition of the problem that they're helping to create right now? Are they more cooperative than they used to be?
So I can speak a little bit to that. Some things I've seen is things that our technicians were not allowed to fix before. All of a sudden, our technicians can fix now. And, actually they're being asked to go and fix things, and I'm like, what changed? Like these guys were not allowed yesterday, or an hour ago, really. And now all of a sudden they are experts at fixing these devices just because you can provide the parts. We've seen I've seen at least two models of devices where the manufacturer asked us to do the job, and they will provide us the manuals in order to update. One of them was an electrosurgical unit. The other one was a heater cooler, as I mentioned before.
I wouldn't say it's a general case. Some manufacturers, they are capable now of understanding our point of view, and from my latest experience, it's because they are hiring the right people. They are hiring biomads, they are hiring clinical engineers who understand our point of view, so they are able to adapt and get better at it, understanding that if they're cooperative and they're helping, it's a win-win to everyone. But I see different I have one specific manufacturer in mind that it's like they're getting from bad to worst. Like one example is EKGs. I mean, EKG is one of the simplest things to repair in our world. And one of the manufacturers is saying now that, you know what, you cannot fix this. You're not allowed to buy parts. I need the part. I need a roller. I need something just simple to fix it. No, you can't. we have a flat rate. You have to send us your EKG, and you pay us $1,000. We'll fix it and send it back to you. But I don't need to send it out. I don't need that downtime. And it's not $1,000 fix. It's like $25 fix. I can do it myself. No, this is our new process. We cannot sell you parts. Simple as that. So it's, I mean, you get to the point, you know what? Okay, I learned my lesson. I know that I will have to replace my EKGs and you're out of business with me. So not sure how can they do that without seeing how they're failing themselves and failing their patients.
Right, right. So in some cases they're getting a little bit better. In some cases, maybe getting worse. After COVID-19 started, but it's an issue that's been going on for a long time. I think we're going to wrap up soon. Any closing remarks? Any burning thoughts to share before we wrap things up?
I just wanted to add, first of all, thank you for putting this together. This is, this is great. I'm happy, to be partnering with you guys and see if we can all, speak up for the industry, or especially, we are interested in medical devices, obviously, but I think, Kyle can speak about the industry as a whole. Anything we can do to help, I think it's gonna really improve patient care. We will see a big difference in patient care. We will see a big difference in healthcare costs. I think it will really bring down costs of fixing medical equipment and overall the cost of healthcare and availability. I mean, we'll be able to do things much faster than we were able to do it before. So again, like anything we can do to help from the American College of Clinical Engineers, we'll be happy to contribute to this and partner with you guys. Thank you.
Great. Well, and thank all of you for speaking out about this issue that can, I think, as has been demonstrated in these examples, directly affect public health as well as drive up the cost of the healthcare system for all of us. Something I think generally we all should care about, particularly during a pandemic. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, my organization is planning on delivering the letter that this group and 326 biomed signed to our own elected officials here in California, and we'll be distributing it elsewhere. I guess be curious to know what you are hearing. Oh, we're getting some more questions now. So
Lauren's got a question. And I think I'll take a stab at answering Lauren's question, then pass it along to you guys. But Lauren is curious, why are people hesitant to bring up name specific manufacturers, because it's easier to tell a story. So you guys will have your own reasons for naming manufacturers and not. But I'm not in the industry, so I have the ability to do this. So I would say, some companies that we're seeing that are doing a good job in terms of public availability of service information. Mindray is a company who has consistently made service manuals available on their site. I don't know in terms of parts and training how they're doing. If I was going to name some companies that seem to be more on the restrictive side, it seems to me that Medtronic and GE are toward the top of that list. But I will, if you guys have specific examples you can share, feel free. Or another way to do that might be to have some off the record conversations with reporters where you could share specific examples.
I'll comment on that, and I'm calling it a comment. The reason that we're not naming manufacturers is because, as I said, and I do believe in that, we're not here to fight them. We're not here to have them knee in front of us to give us what we're asking for. We're asking for collaboration. We want all the vendors, not specific manufacturers, named to change their performance. It's everyone, all of them. We give examples. We have examples for specific ones, but we don't want to constrain this to be one specific example for that one specific manufacturer. This is not what we're here for. This is not what our goal is. As Kyle mentioned, if you want more specific examples, we can definitely provide that offline, and we can share that with you. It's all facts. We're not coming up with these situations. It's facts. It's well known. It's identifiable. We have documentation to support everything that we say. So the manufacturers, they know it, we know it, everyone knows it. We have the documentation, so we can provide that to you. So just for the sake of making sure that we're addressing everyone, I prefer not to mention names. At the same time, I'm not mentioning names that are improving, even though one of those that Kyle mentioned, I have seen improvements with them, and I like the changes that they're doing. But I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Great. And we also had a question from Jonathan Lee, who I think many of you might know. I'm going to leave it to one of the biomeds to explain the question and potentially provide an answer to it. I'll read it. It's CMS and TJC have adopted NFPA 99, 2012 as code, and TJC have added it EP for the manual library. What's the panel's take on this?
Do you want to take a stab on that, Lair?
Yeah, I can try to take a stab on that. Of course, I don't believe there is a requirement by the Joint Commission to have a manual library of training material available. So I don't know if Jonathan is.
You get a little closer.
Yeah, I don't know if Jonathan is talking about that, or if he's talking about the manual library of training that our technicians have received. So I know the Joint Commission has its requirements around documenting all the training that the technicians and everybody that works in medical equipment, the kind of training they have received. So we do document that. We have a library of technicians and the training available. But I don't believe Joint Commission, unless this is something that happened over the last 3 months, because I did have a Joint Commission inspection about 4 months ago. I don't believe Joint Commission has a requirement around having a manual library of training material.
So, Ilair, if I can add in there, this is Paul. The Joint Commission did add an EP in there, having a service library, and it was to give us some power to get that. The mandate isn't that you have something for every device. It was a tool that we could use to try to get it.
So I think to add more to it, I think the main narrative behind it is, as part of new procurement or new equipment purchases, we can use this EP and leverage it and ask the manufacturers to provide those documents. So again, once we ask something, the payback question is, we have the training that we have to invest. That is also a piece that has to be answered as part of the whole this library. Just because we have a service library, we can't just go and directly work on the newer technology.
Yeah, so to add to that, I mean, that specific training is related. So if you are certifying, in your documents that the technician has been trained on something, you also have to have that service training manual available. So it's not a requirement to have service training manuals available for all equipment. It's more around, if the technician is trained on something, show me the service manual. So we can use that EP, to sort of trick manufacturers into providing us more service manuals. But, the manufacturers already know that they don't have to provide us. They may as well just say, no, we cannot provide that. We'll give you all these options of service contracts. And then you don't have, it's not, again, it's more of a recommendation rather than a must, than a must do for manufacturers.
Which is why we need a law to level the playing field across.
Exactly.
Right. So if there was one thing that you had government officials do right now, what would it be?
Make this a requirement. give us our rights to our equipment.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a handful of things. The FDA could issue a ruling saying, requiring the information be available, both software tooling and service manuals, or a state could pass a right to repair bill like California has proposed, like 20 other states have proposed.
Right. And I bet in this time, at least, there's things that governors could do as well.
I think the executive branch has a large amount of latitude right now, so this would be a really good time to do something like that.
Correct.
You know, this is Paul again. Can I add in that right now the FDA requires manufacturers provide IFUs, instructions for use, with all devices they sell. That's a mandate. They also mandate that installation and adjustment data for a very small subset, imaging equipment, be provided, but nowhere does it require service manuals be available at all.
Wow.
One thing that I'm curious about is, are there categories of machines that you see as being increasingly challenging to work on? Like, where are you seeing software diagnostics be required? What type of equipment is that?
Mainly on imaging.
Mainly
Like
imaging
imaging.
and radiology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say imaging, lab, certain ventilating machines, anesthesia machines. They do have some requirements that you need to be able to log in. You need to be able to log into manufacturer's website, which means that you need to have received the previous training from manufacturers and keep paying every year in order to keep that training active.
That makes sense to me. The other thing that I've seen is, as we've been looking at this, is just, I mean, the scope and scale of devices that you have to service, I think is far larger than what I think a normal person, we think about the things that you're managing in an office, and there might be 24 different products that an IT manager in an office is having to deal with. How many products are you maintaining, and do you have any kind of centralized repository of the service information, or are you having to go to each manufacturer and manage each one separately?
It's the latter. We have. I mean, I did that. I tried to do that homework a while back. Where I work at, we have around 20,000 pieces of devices, and that is about 800 to 1,000 different type of devices. So think of it like an iPhone versus a desk phone versus a display versus something. So that's 800 to 1,000 different types, and each of those have its own manufacturer. You have to go and get that information from them. There's no centralized location, simply because of the fact that we don't have that information readily available for us. You mentioned Frank. Frank did a great job by collecting from all manufacturers into one repository, but maybe we need to work on that and make it legal, because my understanding is he's not having fun doing that. And I would like to add just to Jonathan Lee's question. So the requirement in the Joint Commission is a requirement for the healthcare organization, for the hospital, for you as a hospital employee. It's not a requirement for the manufacturer. So manufacturers are not obligated in any way to abide by that. It's a requirement for us, and the Joint Commission will not enforce that requirement because they know the restrictions, just to clarify that.
Great. Great. Well, I think we have answered all the questions that we got and for this panel, and I want to thank all of the panelists, all of you, for getting on again and sharing your experiences. And I look forward to working with you to make sure that medical equipment can be repaired in a timely and affordable fashion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
iFixit is going to be making an announcement tomorrow, so stay tuned.
Okay. Keep us informed.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you all.